He shaved his head in the bathroom one morning while I was still half asleep. I watched through the mirror's reflection, the slow drag of the clippers, the exaggerated sigh, the tear he didn't wipe fast enough. "They said it's stage 3, he whispered, barely audible. "I didn't want to tell you before I was sure." My blood turned to ice. Cancer. Just like that, our marriage changed. Sympathy replaced routine. Fear replaced frustration. I stopped asking where the money was going. Stopped questioning the late nights, the new clothes, the donations from coworkers he claimed were small and discreet. He said he didn't want a GoFundMe, said he didn't want pity. But one day I found it public, polished, perfectly written. A tearjerker, a manipulative masterpiece. Thousands of dollars raised in a week, strangers sending prayers, his mom weeping into the phone, and him smiling more than I'd ever seen him smile. I wanted to believe. God, I wanted to. But one thing never added up. The paperwork. I never saw it. Never a prescription bottle. Never a scan. Never a bill. And every time I asked, he got vague. So I called the clinic, gave them his name. They told me they had no record of him. Ever. He wasn't sick. He was stealing from people who thought he was dying. So I did what any loyal wife would do. I made sure the next time he saw a hospital bed, he didn't walk into it willingly. We met in the ER. How poetic, right? He had a dislocated shoulder from falling off a ladder. I was there with a migraine so bad I couldn't see straight. We ended up on gurneys next to each other. He cracked a joke. I laughed, then vomited. He said it was love at first sight. His name was Connor. He was charming in that boy next door, slightly too good to be true way. Always had a story. Always knew how to make people feel like the center of the universe, especially me. He fell hard. We moved in together after 6 months. Married before year 2. And at first, it worked. He wasn't perfect moody when things didn't go his way. Vague about money, always between jobs, but somehow always had the newest gadgets. I brushed it off. Told myself love required grace, but then came the cough, the fatigue, the hushed calls behind closed doors. At first, he said it was just stress, that his new job at a tech firm was intense, that he was adjusting. I believed him until the day he didn't come home for 2 nights and claimed he'd been at urgent care, too out of it to call. When I asked for a doctor's note, he looked hurt. "You don't trust me?" He made me feel like the villain. A few days later, he dropped the bomb. Stage 3 lymphoma. "They found it too late," he said, eyes glossy. "But I'm gonna fight." I cried. We held each other for what felt like hours. After that, our life changed again. He quit his job. Said he couldn't risk the stress. He spent more time online, set up fundraisers just to help with bills. His friends from college organized a walkathon. My boss passed around an envelope at work. Money poured in, and Connor got happier. It was subtle at first. New headphones, nicer clothes, take out 3 nights a week. He said it was retail therapy, that he deserved some comfort. Who was I to deny a dying man some comfort? But something inside me started to shift. He never lost weight, never lost hair until the day he shaved it himself. I asked about chemotherapy. He said it was a new kind, doesn't make you sick. I asked for appointments. He said he wanted to go alone, so I didn't see him weak. But he never looked weak. He looked vibrant, rejuvenated, as if he'd been reborn by the attention, not beaten down by illness. One night, I checked our joint bank account. Nearly all the fundraiser money was gone. No hospital payments, no insurance charges. But there were receipts, high-end restaurants, electronics, even a weekend Airbnb out of town he claimed was for rest, alone. When I confronted him, he turned it into a sob story, said he was afraid, that he'd been spiraling, that I didn't understand what it felt like to be dying. That word, dying, it echoed in my head for days. So I made the call to the oncology clinic he claimed was treating him. And when the receptionist said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we have no record of a Connor Fields. Are you sure he's a patient here?" Something inside me snapped. I hung up, Saturday on the couch, looked at the man I married now, humming along to a Spotify playlist, polishing a new pair of sneakers, and realized I was living with a con artist, one who used cancer as currency. And he had no idea that I was done being a passive character in his redemption arc. After I confirmed he wasn't a patient, I didn't say anything. Not at first. I watched closely. He'd gotten too comfortable lounging around in sweatpants, adding things to our Amazon cart we didn't need, FaceTiming people to update them on the journey with that same soft, gravelly voice like he was pushing through pain. Except his eyes were clear, focused, always calculating who he hadn't milked yet. He'd started coaching me on what to say to others. If my mom asks, tell her I had that appointment on Tuesday. Make sure you mention I've been sleeping a lot. It makes it more real. I told the neighbors I'm immunocompromised, so don't let them come inside. It wasn't a partnership anymore. It was performance, and I was just another prop. Whenever I hesitated, he turned cold. Subtle, sharp, not the yelling type. He'd just withdraw, sulk, make me feel like I was the one being cruel. You think I'd fake something like this? He said one night, barely meeting my eyes. That's sick, babe. I wanted to scream, but I didn't because I needed him to believe I was still on script. He isolated me without ever raising his voice, canceled plans with my family, said it was too risky for his immune system, asked me to work from home more, then full-time, then just take a break, said we could afford it, that the donations had us covered. He used other people's pity to build a prison around me. I started to lose track of time, stopped calling friends, stopped going outside unless I had to. I was stuck in a 2-bedroom apartment with a man who fake cried on phone calls, but never once flinched when I asked about side effects. The silence became unbearable, so I started to plan. I created a fake burner email, subscribed to every cancer support forum he'd ever mentioned, quietly reached out to organizations he claimed had sent care packages. Not a single one had his name. Not a single donation had been processed through the official channels. I wasn't just being lied to. I was being used to amplify the lie, and he was getting reckless. One night, I walked in on him shirtless, taking photos in front of the mirror, a hand on his stomach, eyes cast down, captioning it with, "Fighting, even when it hurts." There was a pizza box open on the table, beer bottle half full. He didn't even pretend to flinch when I walked in. "Content," he said, grinning. "People like when it's raw." I felt something hollow out in me. That was the moment I stopped feeling scared and started feeling ready, because he thought he had me trapped, sad, isolated, compliant. But I wasn't compliant anymore. I was building something. And when I was done, he'd finally be the one feeling real pain. It started with a spreadsheet. I cataloged everything, dates of fake appointments, screenshots of his GoFundMe lies, text logs with donors, purchases made with money people thought were buying chemo, not sneakers. I even kept voice recording short clips from phone calls where he described treatment side effects in nauseating detail. I used a second phone to film him on days he was supposedly too sick to move, dancing in the kitchen, ordering Thai food, lifting weights. I made folders. Then I made backups. He had no idea. Connor was too wrapped up in his new role, cancer warrior, community darling, symbol of resilience. He was guest posting on patient support Instagram pages, giving video updates with dim lighting and a blanket over his shoulders. I watched from across the room, said nothing, just took notes. The next step was legal. Quietly, I met with a friend of a friend, a lawyer, who specialized in fraud and restitution. She didn't blink when I showed her the files. "You're not the first," she said flatly. "But if you want to take him down, we'll need one thing: public evidence." So I staged it. We were invited to a small fundraiser. One, his old coworkers organized to help with the next round of treatment. He didn't want to go at first, said it was too much pressure. But I pushed. "People want to see you," I said. "Let them feel like their money matters." He took the bait. The day before, I replaced his supplements, the expensive herbal mix he used for maintenance, with an over-the-counter diuretic. Not dangerous, just enough to throw his body off. On the morning of the event, he was pale, shaky. "Something's wrong," he groaned. I smiled. "Just nerves." He went anyway, vain enough to need the attention, stupid enough to ignore the signals. At the fundraiser, he tried to speak, started sweating mid-sentence. His hands trembled. He knocked over a glass of water. I rushed to help him, gasps around us. Friends leaning forward, asking if they should call 911. He waved them off. No, I'm fine." But I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Connor, maybe it's time you let them see everything." Then I pulled out the mic. Turned to the crowd. "He's not sick," I said. "Not even close." The room went still. Every dollar you donated, every ride you gave, every message you sent, it went to sneakers, a weekend cabin, a fake story he crafted and sold you. But don't take it from me. I handed the mic to the lawyer, who'd come as a guest. She pulled out the files, played audio, opened the folder of footage. She knew exactly what to say. Clear, calm, factual. People started recording. Connor turned to me not with shame, but fear, not of what he'd done, of being seen for what he really was. He stammered, denied, Tried to fake a faint. No one caught him. Someone called the cops. He was arrested on the spot for fraud, for misuse of charitable funds, for being exactly what I always suspected and finally proved. That night, I slept in our bed alone. And for the first time in a long time, I slept through the night. Court was scheduled 6 weeks later. Connor pled not guilty. Of course he did. Claimed it was a misunderstanding. Said he truly believed he was sick. Even tried to float the term somatic delusion as if lying in high definition across multiple platforms somehow counted as a symptom. His lawyer pushed for a deal, but the state wanted to make an example. The prosecution had everything: the GoFundMe logs, my video footage, the fund disbursement trail. Dozens of donors submitted statements. Some cried. One woman, a single mom, said she skipped meals to donate $50. Another was a cancer survivor who sent him books and care packages, believing he was one of them. He never responded to her messages. The courtroom was silent as the evidence played. There he was, on screen, smiling with a milkshake in one hand and a chemotherapy nausea bracelet on the other. Another clip showed him bench pressing at the gym the day after claiming a spinal tap. He wouldn't look up, just stared down, jaw clenched, like he still thought he could wait it out, that the story would shift if he held still long enough. But the worst moment came when they played his fake final words video, the one he filmed in low light, eyes glistening, voice shaking. "I don't know how much time I have left," he'd said. "I just want to be remembered as someone who tried." In the courtroom, someone laughed bitterly. Another person stood and walked out. I didn't react, didn't cry, didn't smile. I just sat there, still, as he turned to look at me for the first time since the fundraiser. And when our eyes met for a brief, loaded second, I watched his face change. There was no remorse, no shame, only fury. He knew I'd done it. He knew I'd planned every second. And that was the final cut. Because for men like Connor, nothing is more humiliating than being outperformed in their own performance. He wanted pity. I gave him exposure. He wanted to fake pain. Now he lived in it. He was convicted of wire fraud, criminal impersonation, and misappropriation of charitable funds. Sentenced to 18 months. The courtroom emptied. I walked out into the sunlight, real, blinding, beautiful, and exhaled. For once, I didn't have to explain anything to anyone. He had done that himself, under oath, on record, forever. I sold the apartment a month after the sentencing, left the furniture behind, the couch where he rehearsed his sob stories, the mirror where he shaved his head like it meant something, the kitchen table where he opened letters filled with donations from strangers who believed in ghosts more than fact. I packed only what was mine: my books, my files, my silence. I didn't tell many people what happened, not because I was ashamed, but because explaining it out loud would have given him more power than he deserved. Some stories don't need to be shared. They just need to be survived. I moved into a smaller place. Top floor, no shared walls. I got a dog, something loyal, warm, incapable of manipulation. I started sleeping without earplugs. Stopped checking the door twice. The night after I finished testifying, I opened a notebook I hadn't touched since before Connor. I started writing again, not about him, about myself. Not the version he told me I was suspicious, cold, unforgiving, but the woman who had waited, watched, documented, and delivered justice without raising her voice. That version of me deserved the page. One day, I got a letter from prison. Connor's handwriting, tight, pressured, angry. He said he forgave me, said I overreacted, that I had ruined his future over a few lies. I burned it, not dramatically, not emotionally, just folded it in half, struck a match, and let it turn to ash in the sink. Because closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose. I don't think Connor will ever understand what he did. Not really. His lies weren't about money. They were about control, about seeing how much he could take before anyone said no. And the thing about people like him, they always mistake kindness for permission. But I wasn't kind anymore. I was free. And when people ask if I regret what I did, if I ever feel guilty for destroying his life, I just smile and say, he's still alive, isn't he? That's more than he ever offered anyone else. He walked into my cafe like he was just another customer, tanned, smiling. That same crooked tooth I used to stare at when I was 5, the same voice that used to read me bedtime stories before it disappeared behind a slammed door and a mother's silence. "Hey, kiddo," he said, like the last 20 years had been a commercial break. And then he asked for money, not forgiveness, not a hug, not even an explanation, just money. Like the past was a tab he could pay off if the interest rate was low enough. I stood behind the register, blinking at the man who vanished the day before my 10th birthday. No note, no visit, no phone calls, not even when mom got sick. just gone like love had an expiration date, and I'd passed mine. Now here he was, in my shop, asking for a loan like we were still related. And the worst part? He looked proud of himself, like showing up was some kind of grand gesture. Like I should be impressed he even remembered I existed. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that I'd been waiting for this moment, not to reconnect, not to rebuild, but to settle the score, because the little girl he left behind, she grew up with a memory sharper than absence. And I wasn't about to give him what he wanted. I was about to give him what he earned. When I was a kid, my dad was magic. He could make quarters appear from behind my ear, made spaghetti taste like a feast, could throw me into the air so high I thought I might never land. He smelled like Old Spice and gasoline, a scent I still associate with false safety. He called me Mouse, said it was because I was quiet, but clever. Back then, I believed every word he said, that he'd never miss a birthday, that he loved Mom more than life, that we were the three of us, unshakable. Then one Tuesday morning, he left. No fight, no warning, just a cup of coffee left half full and a folded grocery list with nothing checked off. I waited all day on the front steps. By sunset, I stopped crying. By midnight, I stopped believing. He never called, never wrote. I didn't know if he was alive or dead until I turned 14 and found a photo on Facebook. Him smiling on a beach, holding hands with a woman I'd never seen, tagging someone as my boy. Not me. Mom never said much. She went from laughter to survival in a week, picked up 2 jobs, started drinking her coffee black. She told me once in a moment of exhausted honesty, "He didn't leave us, honey. He left himself." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. I carried that absence with me through every phase of life. High school plays where no one clapped for me. College interviews with no tie borrowed from dad. Graduation photos cropped close so you couldn't see the empty seat. When Mom got sick, I almost called him. Almost. But I didn't know where to begin. "Hi, remember the daughter you left behind? She's about to lose the only parent who stayed. I buried her 2 years ago, alone. No flowers from him. No condolence call. Just silence. Until last week. Until he strolled into the cafe I opened with every dime I had. Saw my name on the sign. Said he was so proud. Ordered a coffee like he belonged there. Then leaned in with a smile and said, 'You always were smart. I need a little help. Just until things pick back up.' Like the last 20 years, didn't leave a crater between us. Like I owed him. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I'd do. Because forgiveness isn't free. And blood doesn't buy loyalty. He came back like he never left. Within a week of that first visit, he was in the cafe every day. Sometimes alone. Sometimes with stories. Always with that same familiar confidence. The kind that made people trust him before they had reason to. Just checking in, he'd say, 'I miss this place.' This place as if it had always belonged to us. He charmed my baristas, remembered their names, told jokes that made the customers laugh. He even helped carry out chairs for the farmers market on Saturday mornings. And when he saw me watching from behind the counter, he smiled like we were sharing a private joke, like this was a homecoming. What no one saw was how he'd linger after close, wait for the staff to leave, then drop the act just a little. 'Business doing okay? Looks like you've grown this place pretty fast. You always were ambitious.' There was a question buried under the compliment, and I never answered it because I knew what he was doing. He wasn't asking for a handout. He was softening the ground, wearing down my suspicion with every smile, every memory, trying to rewrite the past just enough that the present didn't sting so badly. 'You know,' he said one night, 'your mom and I, we weren't good together. She always made things harder.' I said nothing. 'She told me to leave,' he added, watching me closely. 'She said I was in the way.' I looked at him, measured, calm. That's not what she said on her deathbed. He blinked. Once. Just enough. But he recovered. Leaned back. Sighed like he was the one carrying the pain. I guess the truth depends on who's left to tell it. That was his trick. Shifting the frame. Making me question what I remembered. Maybe it hadn't been abandonment. Maybe there were 2 sides. Maybe. Just maybe. I was being too hard on him. Except I wasn't 10 anymore. I didn't need a bedtime story. I watched as he told other people how close we were. Told a customer he used to bring me to school every morning. Told a vendor he'd helped fund the shop when it opened. He was creating a narrative where he was present, even generous. And the more people believed it, the more isolated I felt in the truth. Because the truth is ugly, inconvenient, and lonely when the liar is better at smiling. That's when I started writing everything down. His words, his stories, the inconsistencies, the timelines that didn't add up. The way he got angry quickly when I asked for documentation about his supposed financial hardship. The way he said, "You don't trust your own father?" I said, "Number I trust what's real." He didn't like that. The charm cracked. His next visit was colder, shorter, but he still asked. Said it was just $5,000, that he'd pay it back within a year, that it wasn't about the money. It was about rebuilding what we lost. What we lost. Like he hadn't been the one to walk away from the fire holding the match. I told him I needed time, and he nodded like he understood. But I could see it in the twitch of his mouth, the flicker behind his eyes. He wasn't here for healing. He was here to collect. What he didn't realize was, so was I. I didn't say no. Not right away. That's the thing about men like my father. They don't respond to walls. They climb them, charm them, chip at them until the cracks start looking like permission. So I gave him space to dig deeper. I told him I was considering it the money, that I'd have to check with my accountant, that I had to move some things around, that I was emotionally hesitant. He nodded, said he understood, said, "Take your time, kiddo." He even hugged me. His mistake. Because the moment his arms wrapped around me, I knew he thought he'd won. I started with the photos. I pulled every childhood picture I had, the ones where I was missing teeth, the ones from birthdays he never attended. I pinned them on the corkboard behind the register. When people asked, I smiled. These are all the years he missed. Then I rewrote the About Us section on the cafe's website, told the real story, how it was just me and Mom, how we survived, how this cafe was born from the ashes of silence. I posted a picture of Mom at the soft, opening her eyes proud, her hair already thinning. I framed it, hung it on the wall where he couldn't miss it. He didn't say anything, but I saw him stare at it for a long time. He stopped visiting daily, started sending texts instead. Long ones, rambling ones, guilt-stained ones. I know I wasn't perfect. She made it hard to stay. I never stopped loving you. I screenshotted everything, filed it. Then I started the fundraiser. Not for him, for single mothers in the city. I called it For the Ones Who Stayed. I launched it through the cafe's social media, told our story with full honesty. The post went viral. People donated, shared, commented things like, "I had a dad like that too. Thank you for saying what I never could." One day, he walked in, silent, tense. He didn't order coffee, just stared at the screen behind the counter, where I displayed the donation total, $8,473 and climbing. He looked at me, jaw tight. "You're making me look like a monster." He shrugged. "I didn't use your name. You didn't have to." For the first time, he wasn't smiling. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I said, voice calm. "I always was." He leaned closer. "This isn't justice. This is revenge." I didn't blink. Sometimes they're the same thing. He left without saying another word. The next day, I got a message from a woman I didn't know. Said she was his ex. Said he told her I was a cold daughter, that I'd cut him off without cause. She found the fundraiser, the story, the pictures. Said it explained a lot. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. His lies were falling apart not because I exposed him loudly, but because I stood still long enough for the truth to echo. I never gave him the money, but I gave him something better. I gave him the mirror and made sure he couldn't look away. He showed up one last time, early. Before we opened, I was restocking cups behind the bar. The front door clicked open, and there he was, shoulders square, jaw set, like he had something important to say, something final. He didn't wait for an invitation, just walked in and locked the door behind him. "I deserve a conversation," he said. I didn't flinch. "No, you deserve consequences, and you've had 20 years to prepare for them." He sat at the corner table, the same one he used to take for himself, like a throne in a kingdom he never built. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "I came to explain." I nodded. "Go ahead." And so we began. He blamed Mom again, said she was controlling, that she drove him away, that he tried to stay in touch, but she poisoned me against him, that he watched from afar, heartbroken, waiting for the right moment to reconnect. When I saw the cafe, I thought, maybe that was the sign. Maybe we could start over. He looked at me then. "Really, look, I'm still your father." I walked over and set a cup of water on the table in front of him. I didn't sit. "You're right," I said. "You're still my father. But that's not a role you earn just by existing. It's a job, a hard one. And you quit." He opened his mouth. I didn't let him speak. "You left when I was 10. Not 16, not 18, 10. I waited on the porch for 6 hours that day. You know what I learned from that? Not that you were weak, not that you were lost, that you were comfortable leaving." He looked away. "You abandoned your daughter. You skipped her childhood, her milestones, her grief. And now, you think showing up and asking for money is some kind of closure? His hands curled into fists on the table. I didn't ask for much. No, I said. You never did. That was your strategy. Make it sound small. Make it sound reasonable. But the truth is, you didn't come back for a relationship. You came back for access. He stood, fast. The chair scraped loudly against the tile. You've turned into a bitter little girl. I smiled. Number, I turned into a woman who doesn't confuse manipulation for affection. He pointed at the fundraiser poster still hanging on the wall. You think this makes you righteous? Airing your dirty laundry for strangers to clap at? No, I said quietly. I think it makes me visible, something you never allowed me to be. He stared at me, like he was trying to memorize the version of me he couldn't control. And then he left. No dramatic exit. No slamming door. Just footsteps fading until silence filled the space he once owned. That was the last time I saw him. He never came back. Not for the fundraiser. Not for the free coffee. Not for me. And for the first time, that felt like a gift. He didn't come back the next day. Or the next week. I didn't expect him to. People like my father don't do follow-ups. They do performances. And when the audience doesn't clap, they move on to another stage. Still, some part of me, some child-sized corner in my chest waited. Wondered if he'd send a letter, or an apology, or even a check scrawled with an insincere, "Hope this helps." But nothing came. So I did the only thing that made sense. I stopped waiting. I poured that ache into the cafe, not as distraction, but as choice. I started a new program, free coffee for first-time single moms. For the ones who stayed, turned into a weekly community table. No speeches, no pressure, just women, stories, quiet strength. Sometimes I sit nearby and listen. There's something healing about watching other people name their ghosts. I got a call from a local paper. They wanted to do a feature on the cafe, the fundraiser, the daughter who turned abandonment into empowerment. I said no, because that's not what I did. I didn't rise above. I didn't become a hero. I just survived. And survival, I've learned, is enough. Some days, it still hurts the memories, the phantom comfort of what could have been. But the difference now? I don't cling to the hurt. I don't let it tell me who I am. He left. I stayed. That's the whole story. The door he walked through is still there, unlocked. Not because I'm waiting, but because I don't need to board it shut anymore. His absence doesn't haunt this place. It built it. He gave me silence. I turned it into a sanctuary. And if he ever returns again gray, broke, full of regrets, I won't yell. I won't cry. I won't run. I'll simply say, there's nothing here for you, except everything I built without you.